Hey there, welcome to the 14th episode of our podcast, Life as a Journey. I got word from our one listener that I know of. He was very grateful that we thanked him. So here we go. Our famous. If you are our famous listener, this is for you. Thanks for listening every week.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you. If there are more, we are also happy with you. So keep coming. Um, on today's episode, we'll discuss the true intelligence of AI, which basically means nothing right now. So that's where we'll start to figure out what intelligence means and why I think AI is pretty dumb. Maybe Tunde thinks something else. Let's find out. Um, the reason I came up with this topic is that I wrote an article for LinkedIn last week about how I think, or I'm convinced actually, that the current state of AI is not near really intelligence. I felt supported by some Apple researchers that discovered basically the same thing. They said in a research paper that AI is not really intelligent. It's a generative model, so it knows a lot based on what it learned, but it doesn't have any contextual information. So if you try to engage in a contextual discussion, it doesn't know what it's actually talking about. It can just fill in words that it learned from all the things it read online, and then just adds to the actual model, which is interesting and helpful. But you also don't get um, a true logical answer based on the profound understanding of what you're talking about. Well, this is all very philosophical, so we're gonna add examples. I think we were discussing this for a long time before we started to record, so that's good. We did preparation today. We don't always do
Yeah.
that, but also the question remains: how do we define intelligence, and what are the examples that showed that um, AI doesn't have contextual awareness, basically? So Tunda, bring it on. What did you find?
Well, just by merely Googling what is intelligence, and the simple definition I got is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Um, in the context of AI, I think AI has a large memory or database of information. So it's able to acquire knowledge based on the data it acquired from the internet, right? And use that data as and process it to give us information based on whatever question or whatever prompt we give the AI or problem we ask it to solve for us. So in that, with that definition alone, there is some sort of intelligence in that. I'm not sure if there is a measurement for level of intelligence, but there is something. Because if I look at it, for example, I have a kid that is not up to 2 years old yet. If I don't teach him a specific word, he doesn't know until he starts something, then he knows how to say it. He knows what it means. If he's never taught something, he doesn't know. If I teach him something wrong, if I say highs is nose, it's called nose. You understand highs as nose. Do I now say it's not intelligent enough because he got wrong information? Not really, because he got the wrong information and using that information to process or to make use of to use that information to do whatever he needs to do. The same thing applies to AI. If for example, if you send a prompt to an AI and it gives you a wrong information, we were discussing earlier about what I read also with someone who asked AI to generate a full glass of wine. But because there's really no full glass of wine online, maybe there is, but it's not common. Generally, people put pour wine up to it's not even up to 50% of the glass, I guess, right? So it kept on generating a half full glass of wine, a half full glass of wine. And this person kept on saying, please fill it up to the top, fill it up to the tip, but it never went to the top. It kept on generating the same half full glass of wine. So in terms of intelligence, if the AI has never seen a full glass of wine, it doesn't know what a full glass of wine is.
Um,
But it is intelligent enough to know a glass of wine is half full.
okay. Question: how do you know what a full glass of wine is?
Um, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like it's the level of intelligence. The intelligence of a 2-year-old compared to a 20-year-old is different, right? Because if the intelligence of the AI today can be of a 1-year or 2-year-old. I don't know if they measure it,
Well,
but until it's able to see many things, maybe someone doing, for example, a full glass of water, someone drinking water from a wine glass, for example. Maybe that can be filled up to the top, and then it can maybe interpret that and replace it with the wine.
exactly. That's the thing I like about this, because it's the contextual thing. I think is blocking us from or blocking AI from being truly intelligent, because you know what a glass is, and a glass could look like this one, or it could look like a wine glass, and then you know what full means. Full means that every part of the vessel is filled with whatever you're gonna pour or put in there. And then you say wine. Wine is gonna be in the glass, which is gonna be full. So these are three different things that you then combine, and you go like, okay, now I get a wine glass, and I'll fill it up, and it's full. Because the AI doesn't know what a glass is, and doesn't know what wine is, and doesn't understand the concept of full, it will never do that until it found enough examples of a full wine glass. But you probably ask, can you show me a full glass of water? It will probably show a lot of glass of water which are, well, probably little bit more full than my glass, but no one really fills their glass till the the edge,
Yeah.
right? So isn't that the issue, that the AI doesn't understand what a glass is?
Um, I would not say it doesn't understand specifically. There is also this theory of um experiment they did with, was it flies in a jar,
Mm-hmm.
and they sealed it up, and when they jump, they always get eaten by the cap of the jar. So as they grow up, they could not jump higher than the
That's
length of
the
the
famous
of the jar.
flea experiment. Yeah.
Yeah. So those kind of flies in the jar that has never jumped higher than the height of the jar, they think they could never jump high enough, even when the lid is open.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of their own understanding of the ability to jump higher,
Mm-hmm.
there's a limit. There's a ceiling to it. They've never jumped higher. They've never gone beyond a specific limit. Until maybe one day someone tries it and jumps way higher than everybody has ever done. Then they understand that there's a possibility of jumping higher than what they're known to do.
Mm.
Um, so in terms of intelligence, do we now consider all those flies as not intelligent enough because they didn't think they could jump higher than the glass? Not really. Um, well, the first person that tried to jump higher than the glass might be considered smarter than the rest, but the rest are still smart or intelligent enough, in my own
Yeah,
opinion.
but you're describing the effect of conditioning, right?
Yes, and this conditioning is what I believe is affecting the AI as well.
Mm.
And I believe the AI today is also very young in terms of reasoning and intelligence as well. I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but there is some very small amount of intelligence. We cannot say it's just processing an if else statement only and not applying some
But
level of. intelligence.
Well, the experiment the researchers from Apple did was they gave it a math equation which it could solve, and then they added small kiwis to the math equation, which had nothing to do with the equation, but just to put it on the wrong path. And then it tried to solve the equation using the kiwis as part of the equation, which ended up in a messy example. I did basically the same thing, which now doesn't work on all AIs. You just tried it on ChatGPT, and it does it correctly. But I've tried it on Copilot, and it didn't do it correctly. Depends on the model you're using, apparently. But I asked to draw a image of a modern living room without a Norwegian forest cat, and then sometimes you get a living room without a cat, and sometimes you get a living room with a cat. I think this is easy to prevent. I mean, you could train or you could even program a model to everything that you shouldn't do to throw it away before you actually start working on the prompt. So it's not that hard to overcome this. I think human brain, and that's the interesting thing. There was a little bit of this discussion on LinkedIn underneath my post around it has similarities to not thinking about the pink elephant. So for the one listener we have, don't think about the pink elephant, which we can't. Our brain is not capable of not thinking something, because as soon as I mention the pink elephant, you cannot do anything else than think about the pink elephant, because
Okay,
that's
sorry, let me pause you there.
yeah.
So when you say don't think about pink elephant, and then I start thinking of pink elephant, let's assume my brain is a huge computer and
Yeah.
everything I think about is being printed out,
Uh-huh.
not what I say, right?
No.
Because before I say something, it's been processed and then filter out. If you say don't give me a sentence without saying an elephant, I
Uh-huh.
can say that
Yeah.
without pronouncing an elephant. But my
Exactly.
brain already said elephant.
Yeah.
So if you attach a computer to my brain and you give me a prompt and say, don't think about a pink elephant. I already thought about a pink elephant, and there's an output on a computer that said, I thought about a pink elephant. The same thing applies to I believe, because if you say don't do
Well,
something, it might think about it
I
and it will do it.
I disagree. Let's disagree on the Monday morning. Because if I ask you to draw a picture without a pink elephant, you would go like, I think about the pink elephant, but I don't draw it. And that's basically what I asked. Draw a picture without the pink elephant. So I don't mind the computer thinking about the pink elephant, but I only want it not to put it down in the drawing. But maybe this isn't the greatest example, or not. There were more examples, and the question what basically underlying is, does it know what a pink elephant is? Does it understand what a kiwi is? Does it understand what a glass is? And I think now we're discussing it. It shouldn't be that hard for an AI to learn the contextual value in terms of specification. So the way I was reasoning before about the full glass of wine, I think an AI could be taught to reason the same way. Like, okay, so he's asking for a full glass of wine. What exactly is a glass? A glass is a vessel that can hold a liquid. Okay, good. So now what kind of liquid does he want to pour into it? Okay, wine. Okay, red wine. Apparently, we're going to do red wine. Fine. How much? Full. Okay, full is theoretically to the edge. But usually when we ask for a full glass of wine, we won't get a glass filled until the edge. So that's going to be a bit of a perception game. So first it will probably do a full glass of wine as you get in a restaurant, which makes sense because you always get like maybe 1/3 or 40% filled, because that's how we drink wine. And you ask, no, completely full until the edge, and then say, okay, fine, this is the vessel, this is the fluid, this is the, and then it will. So it is still a piece of math that can be solved, unless it isn't applying actual math to the equation and it's just generating the words it's saying or the image based on what's most likely the next word that comes up based on how the model is trained, because it has no awareness. And that's the generative AI part, where it just comes up with, it's probably this because that's the most common next word in this sentence. So it's not actually reasoning with you, or it's actually trying to figure out what a glass is and how much wine you want, but it's just well, like you said, it looked up all the images of wine on the internet and the similarities, and it can't look further than what uh, it saw online. Maybe that's something where the intelligence part of AI could learn. And I think ChatGPT has this new O1 model, which is advanced reasoning. Maybe this is why they call it that. I don't know, actually. I do use it. So maybe they added more reasoning capabilities to it. At least they are using more GPU power. That's why you cannot ask unlimited questions to 1.0 yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I do agree in terms of, for example, the full glass of wine thing. It should be able to break it down into pieces and understand a glass of wine and full glass and generate the image easily. But for whatever reason, it was unable to do it. But also, we can agree that intelligence, I mean, we also, it's also one of the reasons why there is IQ tests, right? People with high IQ and low IQs. As human beings, we have different varieties or levels of intelligence, right? What I find easy can be difficult for you, or what you find easy can be very difficult for me to process.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with the AI. I think the question is, what do I consider as intelligent enough, and what do you consider as intelligent, and how do we measure the intelligence in these AIs? And how do we say, okay, this AI is capable of doing these things, but it's not capable of doing something else? Because, for example, I think up until early this year, they were not able to generate very good quality videos until recently.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also generative. I'm not sure that comprise of a lot of intelligence as it does with the text, because it's also combining a lot of things. But I do believe there is some level of intelligence, not smart enough because it's still a baby, in my opinion. I believe in the next decade, it's going to be way advanced that beyond what we can think of.
Oh, I had a discussion with a friend a long time ago, and he asked me, "Do you believe that AI, in the sense of autonomous driving, would be ever smart enough to navigate through a busy city center?" And I said, "Definitely." He wasn't convinced, so he asked, "Why do I believe that is that?" Because to look at your brain as a neural network, which fires off a lot of sensory data, memories, what it was learned, all the pathways that we have in our mind. I strongly believe we can replicate it in a computer sooner or later. And if it's going to be
Mhm.
5 years or 10 years or maybe 50 years, I don't know that. I know that the brain is very complex and very energy efficient. But I also see that mimicking those pathways by storing information, memories, using sensory data, it's not all that different from what a computer does. So you could even go a bit further, and maybe we are slowly developing ourselves in a digital form. Uh, and AI will become some sort of self image of ourselves in a digital form um, because we can, because at the end we will be capable of developing some form of computer that is possible to at least like 99% bring the same intelligence as a human being, even
Mhm.
including creativity, because I think the process of creativity is just neurons in a certain way interacting, coming up with new ideas, because they are capable of forming new paths or finding new information, combining that uh, the whole time. Computer can do that. I mean, it's not going to be too hard.
I believe that with creativity, it has to do with emotions as well. Until AIs
Hmm.
have emotions, it's really difficult to be creative. Because to be creative, you have to create something that has never been done before, right?
I agree, but emotions are mostly revolving around hormones and other chemicals in our system, which influence how we feel. But these are also chemicals. It's just another way of biological programming that's happening, which influences your brain, influences your how you feel and how you perceive the world. So yes, it's I think that's on a different level. I mean, if you include the electronics in our brain, because our brain is also using electronics basically, and chemicals are different in that sense. But I do think that mimicking this in a computer is going to be possible. Um, it's going to be mimicking. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same to get similar output. You already see that if you ask a computer to write a book, it will take a few minutes, and then you have a complete book, which seems to be
Yeah.
written by a human. So we are on a part where, and then you say, but AI is not creative, but somehow it comes up with a new book that doesn't exist yet. So what it's,
Well, is that part of intelligence?
I don't know. You tell me. And is it creative? I don't know either. But maybe reusing what we know. If I go back to what you said about your son, you're basically training your large language model into your son, so it can use it the rest of his life, and then he's going to reuse everything he learned, maybe to write a book. So he's
Yeah.
basically doing the same thing. And then we call your son creative and unique. And if an AI does it, we say he stole it because he was trained on actual data. But if I
Yeah.
read a book and I use the knowledge I get from the book to write another book, I'm technically doing the same thing. I'm training my large language model inside my head, and I'm using it to write a new book. And luckily, when I do this, no one comes and says, "You train on my book." Now I want it's copyright infringement. So
Yeah.
that's why these are difficult discussions. But the question about the self-driving car, because that's another form of AI which can basically exist in the real world and actually manipulate something. I mean, writing text is still a bit harmless, but an AI driving a car, that could be more impactful. But do you think self-driving cars will be able to navigate busy city centers somewhere in the future?
I think they are already doing that. I watched a video of Tesla trying to avoid eating a human being and then causing an accident by eating another oncoming car. So there were people on the roadside, maybe fighting or playing or something. So they pushed a guy into the busy road,
Mm-hmm.
and the Tesla was coming. So instead of eating the guy, the Tesla swerved and then eats the oncoming car by so it did not eat the man and save his life, but it damaged the car. And that was a self-driving Tesla car.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if a human being was driving that Tesla that day, there is a higher chance that the car would hit that man because it happened in a split second.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't not something you see far away. So I think that they are capable of driving in a busy road as of today if they are trained
Yeah,
in a busy road, right?
I think Waymo is already doing it, right? It's the cab service in California that's already operating driverless cabs. They've done it
Yeah.
for a while. Sometimes you get hilarious videos when all the Waymo cabs create a traffic jam because they're very kind drivers, so they always wait for each other.
Yeah.
And if they all are waiting for each other,
Yeah, I think I saw that video. So there were about 10 Waymo cars
yeah.
waiting for each other.
Um, but that's why I mean the Tesla examples are interesting. I think to truly understand if it made a, dis- a, reason, a reasoning internally to choose crashing the car instead of crashing the human was done. We don't know that. Tesla doesn't share any of that data, but that's the underlying question that you could have. But the fact that this is happening is the that's why I strongly believe that this will be possible, and
Yeah.
I strongly believe that self-driving cars will be better drivers than humans. because they don't get distracted and they don't get fatigued and they don't get
Yeah, and
annoyed. They
they have so many sensors and cameras and everything. They have multiple highs than we have. So
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that you see that Waymo has invested in a lot of technology to have a greater um, awareness of the surroundings than Tesla has. I mean, but that's just technology. It's a matter of time until that catches up. And indeed, we cannot see 360 degrees around us. And if you have a car with enough cameras and sensors, it will be able to do that. Uh, yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting times. But it's still, I think that many people are put on the wrong impression by the ongoing, well, in the future, you're going to get driverless cars. I mean, I think like a decade ago, Google introduced that first driverless car concept. It was shaped like a bit of an orb thing with wheels. And then their idea was that you just go to Google Maps and you say, I want to go to the office. And then it would say, when do you want to arrive? I want to arrive there at 10. Okay. Well, you're going to be picked up at 9:13. So be ready. And then at 9:05, you get a reminder. Your Google transportation is coming. And then you step out the door at 9:13. And then this pod thingy opens the door. And you get in, you sit there, and it drives you to the office. You won't have any traffic jams because it planned all the transportation that morning. And it doesn't
yeah,
need to have traffic jams. And after it dropped you off, it does some other small tours, and then it goes to the charging station, and it charges itself, and then it goes driving on again. And you won't own a car because you don't need to. You just purchase transportation, and yeah, it was beautiful, the idea of this happening. And then you're a decade further, and it's still not happening. And basically, Tesla presented the same thing, but because it doesn't want you to not own a car, it says you gotta own a car. And it brings you to work, and instead of parking it at work, it's gonna be a cab. So it's trying to privatize owning a cab car or something. I'm not
yeah.
sure if that's really gonna work or ever gonna happen, because if someone pukes in your car, it's gonna be still gonna be your car. So I'd rather have it being Google's car, and then Google can clean it up. I think the theory behind this is amazing, and I think individual transportation will stay because we like individual transportation. But you could also imagine if the vehicle you're using has like 4 seats, you could share the ride, and it becomes cheaper.
Hmm.
So there are all kinds of concepts, but yeah, I already was planning what I'm gonna do with the space this is gonna save, because if I no longer need a driveway, I can use the space in my garden. So I see all kinds of benefits of not having to look at all the cars in the street.
Yeah, yeah. That is definitely happening. And but I think the only thing stopping it right now is not really the technology, but the laws and getting the environment ready for it to happen. Because there's going to be people against it, people that want to keep driving, and until those generations fade away, maybe they become too old and they don't feel like driving anymore because they don't have the energy, and then the new generations are lazy to drive, and they enjoy the freedom of walking while on the way to the office or to wherever they are going and doing something else. Until that happens, and then there's enough regulations to allow those kind of things, then it can materialize. Until then, I believe um, there's still some work to do. I believe the technology is ready, maybe not mature totally because it still needs to train a lot on different street dynamics and environments. But I think we have it today. We just need to implement it.
I agree. I think the main issue that you would have now if you want to implement a self-driving car is that there are not self-driving cars around you. which
Yeah.
will behave erratically and unpredictably. If all the cars on the street were self-driving cars, you could negotiate a protocol of how you would navigate the streets. And you would not need any traffic lights, you would not need any signs, because the algorithm would arrange everything. And that's also a bit scary. So I think that's going to take a lot of time and also still a lot of regulation, but also acceptance from people, but also a redefinition of the automobile industry. So at first I found the presentation of Tesla pretty sad. It looked very movie set, and it didn't really look like it was something that were actually doing. It was more like a mock-up. But the idea is still the same as that Google presented before, in a different way. And I still believe that that's the way forward for the future. But it also means that, and that's the thing that Tesla did, was redefine your role as a car manufacturer. So if no one owns a car and everyone just sits in the generic available Uber thing, you get way less cars, which drive way more. Because one of the things that you notice if you look at transportation right now, if you look at the window, I see dozens of cars. They're
Yeah.
standing there. On my driveway, there are 2 cars. They're standing there. They're not going to do a lot today. They're not going to do a lot tomorrow. They're never going to do a lot. The amount of times that they're both gone are limited. So why do I even have a car? Why do I even have 2 cars? For that one time, I need 2 cars? Because right now, if I want to use public transportation, it's a hassle. And then if I own a car, I already have it. So I might as well use it when I have it, but I don't use it that often. So I think the most of the cars are used like under 10% of the time. So imagine if you could up that to like maybe 50% of the time. That makes a car way more efficient use of all the resources.
I think it's in human nature to try to have something in excess. Look at the clothing we have. I mean, we only have 7 days in a week. We should have like maximum 7 to 10 clothes, but we have more than 10 clothes in our
Oh yeah,
wardrobe.
yeah. Oh, I mean, owning
Right.
is status and fulfillment and everything. So I totally get it. No car commercial is about efficiency.
Yeah.
They're all about the emotion and what the car would do for your I don't know, your status, or the fun you'll have while driving it, the few times you're using it. I absolutely get it. I like owning my car. That's why I probably have. Um, while I also see it's not very efficient, especially in an age where we say, well, the resources on this planet are
It's
limited.
it's until we hone something and then we realize we don't use it that much. I mean, even for example, if someone is trying to buy a house,
Uh-huh.
if you already have a family, you'll be thinking of uh, how many rooms the kids will have, either one or two, and you think of having a guest room. The question is, how many times do you have guests over? So, because you have guests around 2 or 3 times a year, so you have a dedicated room that is never used more than 3 times a year, and you spend a lot, which that will cost you maybe extra 50K or so for buying a house, that kind of house. So um, uh, for us humans, we want convenience, and for that convenience, we anticipate to get extra. It's also an example of the clothing that I mentioned. 7 days, you should have 7 clothings, but you now think, okay, what if I get into a messy situation and I need to change 2 clothes in a day or 3 clothes in a day, and then, but how many times do you have to change 2 clothes in a day? But also, you can wash them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wear the one you plan for tomorrow and then wash it, and then you can still continue and not have any issues. But we would always get something that uh, either we don't need afterwards, or after we get it and when we realize that we don't really use it that much. An
Isn't
example is
yeah.
is that car you are mentioning.
It's exactly this mechanism where marketeers love to play with. I mean, it's yeah, you're right. I couldn't help myself wondering if we have cars that drive themselves based on AI, which are going to be almost as smart and intelligent and like humans. Will they choose their favorite customers to drive around? Then they go like they go, and it's not 9:13, but then it's 9:05, and I should get ready to, and it's already here, and then the car stands here, and it's just stands here and stands here, and then I go out, and then it starts blinking its light and opens the doors, and then it says, "Oh, I'm so happy you're here. I was looking forward to driving you to work." Or they're gonna say like, "Shall we take a detour today? I mean, it's autumn and the color of the leaves are just beautiful. I want to show you." And then you go like all over the country. Like, am I going to work today? You're going to be a bit later, but I moved your schedule. I put some appointments later in the day because I just want you to see these leaves.
Well, that can absolutely happen. The AI in the future can become therapeutic.
Oh,
So if it detects that you are going through some kind of stress,
yeah,
so maybe for example, on your way to work, you were on a phone call, or maybe it monitors your heartbeat or whatever through whatever sensors is in the car,
yeah,
or from your watch or from your ring, and it gets that data and it's noticed that you are stressed or you're not sleeping enough or something is going on, and it checks your calendar, it sees that you are too busy at work and everything. It can try to manipulate a few things for you and then get your permission to implement those things. And that can be helpful.
yep. Well, I think there are a lot of jobs where people could be a little bit worried about what's going to happen in the future. On the other hand, the promise of technology taking all our jobs has been made many times. And even though, um, I mean, one of the first things I did when I was an intern on my education after I think it's called middle school or high school was actually building welding robots in a factory line. And every time we built a welding robot in a factory line, it meant someone that was doing the actual physical labor, welding something all day long, he was welding the same piece together all day long, was removed. The job disappeared because there was no more need for this person to do the welding.
Mhm.
Luckily, there was a big shortage of welders, so he would do other work right away. It was no issue. He wouldn't lose his job because he was still needed, but not on the factory line because for that particular repetitive welding, they got a robot. Um, the question is if we start replacing other repetitive jobs, if somewhere in the future it will end up in these people not being needed anymore. We'll see.
Absolutely. When there's new technology, there's always some professions that would fade away, but also it creates new professions
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time. So
Mm.
as we invent new technology, people will complain a lot and people will lose their jobs. The most important part is adapting to the change in technology and also change whatever profession you are in and make sure you are still relevant while you are still able to
Mm.
work. If you are close to the retirement age, maybe you don't really have to worry about anything because you're going to retire anyway. But if you're still young when things are changing drastically, there's, but also it's really difficult to notice that something is changing until it's too late.
Mm.
Until you wake up one day and then you find out, oh, you're kind of jobless and you have
And
nowhere to work anymore.
the fact that people like Jeff Bezos love to invest in robots in the Amazon warehouses is quite easy to understand because not only a robot can work 24/7 instead of like 8 hours per shift, uh, but it also doesn't cost him the fees you usually pay on labor. So if you pay a person, you don't even have to pay the person, but you also have to pay the employee the benefit arrangement or maybe health insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So and that's going to be a challenge to upkeep a social welfare system if all companies shift to robotic use of like this. Then you will have to redefine the way you're going to tax a company to upkeep your social your welfare system. So that's why Bill Gates suggested to tax robots in the future, just as we do humans. Because if they do the same job as humans, we should tax them the same way. And
That's gonna be challenging to do.
I agree. The only thing he's smart enough to understand it himself. But the reason why he did it, he mentioned this, is because he wants to change the discussion about how we're going to tax companies to make sure they still contribute to the society. Because he understands that if there is a society of poor people, those companies would not have customers and they would not exist themselves. So I think that's all the humans are part of the same system. So producing for humans that are not able to purchase your product doesn't make sense either. But that's maybe for the next podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's time to wrap up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we touched a few points on the intelligence and the future of artificial intelligence. So yeah, wrap it up.
I can't wait to start planting more trees in my garden instead of parking my very expensive paperweight on my driveway. So
you can sell your car tomorrow. It's very fast.
well, I can tell it not to listen to this podcast, otherwise the car could be sad. Luckily, my car isn't self-aware yet. So, on that bombshell, I'd say have a great day and thanks
You too.
to our sole listener, or maybe we can have a second one next week. All right, bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.